It's another day, left jab, right jab, this is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim, looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting, if you lose, keep your chin up. You know how the game go, I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show, this the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? MMA Live Discussion, episode 25. We got Joe Solecki joining us, and he'll be joining us very shortly here, right around 8:05. So we got about 4 minutes. Obviously, we have UFC 257 to talk about, one of the biggest cards. Well, I was going to say one of the biggest cards of the year, but we've only had, one fight card. So one of the biggest cards we've had in a while, because anytime Conor McGregor's on the card, it's a giant card. It's great to see Conor getting back in there. It's been about 1 year, and it's an excellent matchup too, right? He's fighting Dustin Poirier. We know that he finished Dustin early the last time they fought, which was a long time ago. But these fighters are two completely different fighters right now. So, anything could happen in there this upcoming Saturday. So I do want to get your guys' thoughts on that fight. I'm curious who you guys are leaning towards. So if you guys want to comment, man, who are you guys leaning to win that fight? Are you guys taking Conor with the early knockout, or do you guys think that Dustin drags him into the deep waters? And, maybe Dustin, we've seen Dustin thrive in those late rounds. We've seen him go fight in some 5-round wars where he prevailed with the victory. And we've seen Conor, kind of gas out at times in later rounds. So it's a very interesting matchup, and can't wait to see how that fight goes. Also, the co-main event, Michael Chandler versus Dan Hooker. Excellent stylistic matchup as well. Dan Hooker is absolutely no pushover. So, Chandler wants to get his opportunity to fight in the big show. Let's see how he fares against a guy in Dan Hooker, who is, like I said, no joke. Dan Hooker is some of the best striking in the division. He's rangy. Stylistically, he's a very tough matchup for Chandler, in my opinion, but I think Chandler is up to the task. A lot of people have been kind of hating on Chandler. That's kind of the what I'm gathering from that fight. The more I look into the comments, people are hating on Chandler. A lot of people don't think that he's ready for a fighter like Dan Hooker. So we'll see how that plays out. And Dan Hooker is going to KO Chandler round 1. See, there you go. Teron Brown calling it right now. So that's really what I've been seeing. The more I've been on social media, everybody is taking Hooker to win that fight. The crowd is on Hooker. You guys know my prediction is Chandler to win that fight. I think that Chandler has a couple little X factors that I think will help him win that fight. I think he has wrestling in his back pocket. He has some nasty power in his hands, and his striking is underrated. Yeah, he's a little bit of the smaller guy there. He has a smaller frame, but training with Henry Hooft, he's very, very capable on the feet. Sometimes he does get a little bit overzealous. He's a little bit, I don't want to say over anxious, but I mean, we saw him in that Pitbull fight. He was very hyped up for that fight, and he ran in and he gave Pitbull, an opportunity to put him out. But we'll see how that fight goes. And like I said, we'll be looking into UFC 257 here after we get done chatting it up with Joe Solecki. And Joe Solecki will be joining us very shortly. If you guys have any questions for Joe, comment them. As I'm talking, man, I'll throw them up. But you guys are familiar with Joe Solecki, man. He was on Dana White's Contender Series back in 2019. Got the victory there, got the submission, got the contract. Then he got his chance to fight in the big show, where he took on Matt Wyman. You guys know Matt Wyman, been around the block forever. Took Matt Wyman out, and then since had another fight with Austin Hubert, a guy that had a lot of momentum behind him, and he submitted Hubert quite easily. So a lot of momentum behind Joe right now. I want Conor to win. I can't ignore those odds. Eric, when you say you can't ignore those odds, I'm assuming you're saying that the line is a little high on Conor, no? That's kind of how I feel about that fight. You guys know I'm the biggest Conor fan there is out there, but minus 300 against a guy in DP, Dustin Poirier, who is as game as it comes. I see Conor as high as minus 350 on some of these sports books, which I think that I don't know about that, man. Hooker is a quitter. Well, why do you say Hooker's a quitter, man? We've seen him go 5 rounds. I mean, I don't know if I would say that, but all right, guys, we got Joe in the back. I'm going to bring him in. What's going on, Joe?
Hey, man, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, no problem. Things are good. Let me fix this real quick. Sorry about that. All right. Yeah, things are good, man. Things are excellent. Thank you for giving us the time, man, to come on here.
Oh, man, absolutely. Happy to be on. I honestly haven't done an interview in quite some time now because I haven't fought since the summertime. So it's good to be talking to some MMA, interested people again.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, that's what this show is all about, man. We try to get to know the fighters on a more personal level. And you're a fighter that I was really excited to have on. You're 2-0 in the UFC now after getting that contract on Dana White's Contender Series. Maybe we could rewind the tape back. Take us to that moment where you find out you're going to get an opportunity to fight on Dana White's Contender Series. What are your thoughts at that time?
Absolutely. I was thinking about it the other day, actually. I try to reflect along the journey here and there and just think about how far we've come and how excited and, where I want to go and everything like that. But it's funny because I was thinking about it the other day when I was, got the call. I was like, my management at the time had told me I'd probably need 4 or 5 wins in a row to get where I needed to be. Because I think I was 5-2 when I signed with them. And, this is after 2 wins. So it was really honestly unexpected. And then when I heard I may get the call, my manager at the time was like, hey, I have one fight from you, your last fight, but I need the fight of me at Ring of Combat. I won by triangle. And he's like, I can't find it. Do you have it? I'm like, yeah, I'll get it to you. It's not working on my phone. He's like, well, I need it for Sean Shelby. And he said why? And I was like, done. Send it. Yeah. And then maybe a couple days went by and I got the text when I got to the gym one night, and then it was just 12 or 13 weeks out. And it was just, I think it was come to Vegas next week for pre-production. And that was really cool. And then after that, it was off to the races. So it was just unbelievable to get that call. I really thought it was a couple of years off. So just felt super fortunate to have it,
Yeah. And so your opponent was James Wallace, who at the time, he was actually on quite a hot streak himself, right, going into that fight. And you made quick work of him. I believe it was a guillotine choke, right? I believe you caught him in a guillotine choke.
Yeah. It was arm in guillotine. Yep, kind of arm on the same side instead of the other side. Yep. Yeah.
And, I was getting it confused with some of those other submissions that you've been pulling off because you've been subbing guys left and right, man. The Austin Hubert submission was very, very impressive. You went in there, finished him quickly. And, Austin Hubert is a guy that had a lot of momentum behind him, too. He was coming off a big, big win. You go in there, you submit Austin Hubert. And meanwhile, he was in there with guys like Davi Ramos. They couldn't even get him out of there. And you go in there and get him out of there. Well, that does speak to the level of your jiu-jitsu. You want to talk about your jiu-jitsu game a little bit for everyone?
Yeah, I've been training in Brazilian jiu-jitsu since I was 6 years old, and I say it every single time, but I was absolutely awful as a kid. And my coach John Hassett, who I have my black belt under, up in New Jersey, he would always say it's going to click one day, just stick with it. And I really loved him as a person and looked up to him, so I just believed him. And after so long, it was kind of like how it was when I started fighting and had a couple losses. It was well, I'm in too deep to quit jiu-jitsu, I'm not very good, but I've been training at it for, 10 years at the time. So it's too late to start something else. I was in high school and that was already my passion. So it was too late to go back and take up something else. So same as fighting, after one loss, even 2 losses, it's well, I'm kind of have no future in anything else. So I better, make this work. And it was the same thing in jiu-jitsu. And eventually it did click, and I was thinking about it before I was, 16 years old, driving to these tournaments all over New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, kind of the tri-state area up there. And that was the only time I ever snuck out in high school was when I was going to tournaments. I may have told my parents that one of the guys in the team that was older was driving me and I'd be driving, 3 hours away by myself. And that was the biggest lies I told. Other kids were wanting to go to parties and stuff. But that was my life. I loved it. And it was never about money. I really wanted to teach, or I figured that was probably my only outlet in jiu-jitsu, other than competing just to test myself. And then when mixed martial arts became a thing for me, it was really a really cool chance to display my jiu-jitsu. It was I felt like I kind of have like very basic jiu-jitsu, like very meat and potatoes, pressure style, and just basic, fundamentally sound, but nothing real flashy, which is kind of outdated in jiu-jitsu. Guys don't compete like that anymore. You see a lot of the stuff that sells DVDs and rolling stuff and upside down and leg locks and everything like that. And I just don't have that style of jiu-jitsu. And even since I was a little kid, we would put on like MMA gloves, have like Valley Tudo class back before it was called mixed martial arts. And, it was, I always felt better when I could punch. And then, I always thought that, but it was kind of a guess. And then when I could actually show that, it turns out I was right. I'm way better when I can just use position and punch and be very basic. So I've had a good run of luck with my submission game in MMA, and it's really, got me where I am pretty much.
Good stuff. Now, can I ask you, I just want to run that back real quick. So you started training really early, right? Compared to probably the average fighter. I know nowadays things are changing up a little bit. You're starting to see some of these fighters that have been training from an early age, but how did that work? The first day that you just started training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, was it your parents that brought you into it, or like, how did that come about?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. It was kind of by accident. My brother had been a baseball player, and he's a couple years older than me. He's like 5.5, 6 years older than me. So he had been playing baseball, and we ended up moving to a different neighborhood, and it was a different group of kids. He wasn't really playing as much, and he wasn't getting in with them. My mom was like, we should try something individual for you, and I had always wanted to do karate, but I was only like 4 years old at the time. So I was obsessed with the Power Rangers, and he was interested in all of that too. And she was like, well, basically I'll send him, and if he likes it, and when you're old enough to go to school, which for me, I started kindergarten when I was 6. And she's like, then you can start, and he started, but this was 1998 or 97 when he started. He started about a year or two before me. And within that 2 years, that was when it's the 90s and it was up north. So we were a little later than maybe out in California, like Torrance and stuff with 93, 94. But jiu-jitsu was really catching on finally. And by 99, when I started, the instructor had switched the whole school over. And it was pretty cool because by the time I started, it was just jiu-jitsu class. He went through 2 years of karate. And, luckily, our first instructor was a man named Jim Fortunato. And he lives down in Tennessee now, and he's a preacher. And he runs the Good Fight Jiu-Jitsu tournament. But we trained with him for a couple of years, and we did karate and jiu-jitsu. And then when we moved, his instructor in jiu-jitsu was John Hassett, who I have my black belt under. But he also had a kids karate program and an adult jiu-jitsu program. So I kind of got the best of both worlds with, getting all the life lessons from traditional martial arts and the respect and discipline and things like that. But that being said, kids class would clear out, and 2 to 3 nights a week, I'd be in there at 9 years old with, 40, 45-year-old men, 30-year-old men slamming each other around. And this is about 2002, 2003 at that point. So, the guys that were training jiu-jitsu, it was a very rough sport at the time. It wasn't, you didn't have all your doctors, lawyers, and all that. It was like a very blue collar, gritty environment. And we kind of got the best of both worlds. So my brother and I kind of grew up in the gym like that, and I got my black belt in 2017. And oddly enough, my brother got his black belt last week under John Hassett in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
So
congrats to him.
now we both come full circle. We both made it to black belt as brothers, which is pretty cool. And it's just kind of been a way of life for us. I went the route where I do it for a living. My brother, he's a doctor of physical therapy, so he's going on to do very big things in his professional life, but has kept in with martial arts. It's just become a way of life for our family, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I could say, personally, I'm a little bit envious in that sense because for me, I didn't start training until I was 22, 23 years old. And growing up, I was always a very aggressive kid, but I didn't necessarily have that outlet for MMA. The weird part about it is I grew up right across the street, right down the street. I could almost rode my bike to American Top Team in Coconut Creek. But at the same time, I just didn't really know about MMA at that exact age. And I didn't really understand that I can go to a gym like that, and it just never worked out. I was too busy, watching WWF when I was in elementary, but I wish I had, something like that. I wish I started training at an earlier age. So that's really an awesome thing that you were able to do, I feel.
Yeah, we were lucky we found it, but like you said, guys start late in life and do great. Damian Maya started, I think, when he went to college, so maybe 19, a little earlier than you, but gosh, he ended up becoming better than any of us that wasted our whole childhood.
Yeah,
But,
right.
I will say it didn't make for an easy experience in like high school and stuff, because this was back, gosh, or I'd say middle school definitely was rough, because this wasn't when the UFC was on even Fox yet. I think it was on maybe on Versus, but Spike TV a little bit. It was 2005, so I might have been in sixth grade then. So, and even then it was very taboo when it come on at like 11 o'clock or midnight. I posted the other day. It was the 15-year anniversary of the Ultimate Fighter, and I was like, I used to have to pop a VHS in the VCR and record it because it was on past my bedtime.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, it was definitely a weird thing. Like I would go, and I was starting to have a little success later on in high school competing and stuff, but you kind of go without that experience of like being an athlete or anything like that. Like I won like juvenile Nogi Pan Ams, like not so much as like a shout out in the school paper, or anything like that. Like it wasn't acknowledged. And then I was like 17, 18, grappling black belts, having super fights, all kinds of stuff. And like, just, it was all because I love jiu-jitsu. You don't get that Friday night feeling of like running onto a football field under the lights and all that. So it was kind of funny. It was like my first experience with that, maybe a little bit at CFFC because I had friends and family there, but was really Washington, D.C. My UFC debut. Like I posted a picture of it a couple weeks ago. It was, it was like my name around the arena and my picture. And, that's a place that holds like 20,000 people. And I had like my father, my grandfather, my family there. Like that really meant something to me because I never got to have, a gym full of people cheering for me for anything. So it's pretty cool to, pay all that sacrifice early on. And I never really even paid any mind to, having praise for what I was doing. And then to, have that delayed gratification was pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious. So like when you were in high school and whatnot, like what did your fellow students think of it? Did they kind of understand like what jiu-jitsu was about and all that and MMA? I mean, like, did the kids think it was cool? Did the girls like it? Or was it something that was like, you were maybe doing something that was a little bit different compared to all the rest of the kids?
No, yeah, I was like kind of like a dorkier kid in high school. I'm still a big dork, but now I get to fight in the UFC. But yeah, I had a couple friends. My friends were like, we had like a weird mix of us. Like we were all kind of like, dorkier. But I had a couple friends that play like varsity basketball and stuff, but they weren't like in with the athletes. And like my group, it was like 6 of us that hung out all the time. And I made friends with them because I went over to hang out with them. And at halftime of an Eagles game, because we were outside Philadelphia, was they were like, yeah, you do that jiu-jitsu stuff. Like, I bet you couldn't choke me out. Like, I grappled all 6 of them. I can't remember if they were, like, throwing strikes or not, but I just, like, took everybody out and choked them, like, every single one. Some of them were, like, big guys. And then they're like, oh, this is pretty cool. But other than that, everyone kind of thought – it was like going to school in, like, 1992 before the UFC. Like, everyone just thought I was, like – I never really talked about it, but I'd wear, like, a sweatshirt or something, and I get questions. Like, people thought it was complete nonsense. Like, there's no way this little guy could choke me. I never really argued otherwise. I've never been in a fight in my life. I've never been like, I've never been like that, trying to prove it or anything. But it was, it was kind of weird because like I used to talk about it all the time. I even have in my 8th grade yearbook, I have a message from a kid who said something like, "Good luck going to be a fighter and starting your karate studio," or something like that. And like that same kid was hitting me up for tickets to like one of my regional scene fights, and it's just kind of funny how it goes full circle. But after my UFC debut, there was like a page that covers our town we went to high school in, and they shared like a thing about it. And one of the school, like kind of tough guys or whatever, commented, was like, "Man, I had no idea he fought." I was like, "Well, yeah, you never talked to me. You mean bug me in the hallway? Of course you didn't know." But it was cool. It kind of felt like, especially early on, like when I went over to Hassan Jiu-Jitsu in 2003 was when I was in adult class. I think 2002 or 2003. And from there on out, it felt like we were part of some secret that nobody knew about. It felt like a kid getting to go to Fight Club. Like, it was super cool. And, I could talk about it to my friends, and they'd roll their eyes, but I knew what I had. And I think it's rare to know what you have when you're in that actual time, So it was so cool. I look back on those times. It's just crazy. You're wearing basketball shorts and, like, Century brand MMA gloves, like, beating each other up. I'm, like, 12. It was such a cool experience. So I wouldn't change it for the world. I think now it's really cool that kids can be – doing mixed martial arts, and everybody knows what the UFC is now. So that's cool too, because you can aspire to that and people won't roll their eyes at you. But I like what I went through, which was, having this weird pipe dream that probably wasn't going to pay anything, because at the time, MMA didn't pay anything like that. And I just wanted to be the best that I could. And it's crazy that now all these kids can grow up watching, ESPN, ESPN Plus, and ABC last weekend. And that's cool too, but I like what I had.
Yeah, it's a good point that you bring up too. It's so unique, like your experience, and a lot of the guys' experience that started up back in the day. It's like you said, it wasn't like that. There was money waiting for you, or that type of stardom that you see nowadays in ESPN, ABC, Fox. You've seen the UFC everywhere nowadays. But like you came from a different era in a way. You were just doing it for the passion and the love of the sport. It's definitely unique. It's good
Absolutely.
stuff.
I was obsessed, man. And that's what I laughed. Like there'd be a group of us in the school and we were just obsessed with, taking trips every tournament we could go to. And there was a UFC nearby, trying to get there. Just anything I can get my hands on, a DVD, in the special interest section at Blockbuster, like anything I could get, it was just, and back then, it was before, I think it was before YouTube was, definitely before YouTube was big. I don't even know if it was out, but like, we'd be on like LimeWire trying to download old UFCs and stuff.
Yeah.
And, it was just anything you get your hands on, those old school forums, all that. And it was really cool to be part of something as a fan that felt like nobody knew about. And now it's really cool to see it where you can make a living doing this, and it's funny because even when I talk to my parents and stuff, like I think it took me getting to the UFC for them to realize, because they came up with it like I did, maybe they weren't like watching it with us, but they knew we were watching, they supported us, but never did they think like it was like a career where you can make a good living, and now, they understand that it's my job and everything, but it's funny to see like the shift in them from just seeing like, oh yeah, this is like, you're on ESPN tonight. Like, oh, like an app. I'm like, no, I'm on the main card. Like it's ESPN. They're like, oh wow. Like then, people were calling my dad and my mom from their neighborhood going, is this Solecki guy your son? Or any relationship? They're like, yeah, it's my son. So it's just crazy how it all goes full circle. And I think a lot of that is from, guys like Conor McGregor, guys like, that are bigger than the sport, and they're putting in the public eye, and then we all get to reap the rewards.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. Like, I feel like, well, let me ask you first. So when you're out and about, do you ever have people just walking up to you and say like, hey, are you that UFC fighter? You get that often?
Yeah. Wilmington, North Carolina, where we live, is a pretty small place. It's a nice city. It's like by the beach and everything. So we have like 150,000 people or so, but it's a small town kind of too. So yeah, right after fights, a lot of times people will come up and say stuff, and then it wears off because, I haven't fought in a while. But like last weekend, I had my Reebok jacket on, and it said my name on it. And someone came and was like, "Are you Joe Solecki?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's what the jacket says." But it's cool. It's such a cool feeling because I'm a nobody, so it's not like I'm, heavyweight world champion where I can't go to the grocery store or something. So it's really cool to have somebody come up and maybe they train in another jiu-jitsu school. The coolest one was right after the Contender Series. We were driving on like one of the busiest roads. We were sitting in traffic at the red light, and a cop pulls up next to us. And he like signals for me to roll my window down. I'm like, oh no, like what are my tags expired? Something. He's like, hey, are you that jiu-jitsu guy from the show? And I was like, I think so. He's like, heck of a fight. And like me and my wife were like, oh my God, that was so cool. Like it's cool to have stuff like that. Like I said, I never really never even crossed my mind that would be a thing. So here and there, it happens, and it's cool.
What's interesting about that is, I don't know if you ever like reflected, and I'm sure you probably have, but like the route that you're going, that can only, it can get crazier and crazier. Sometimes you look back, you think about even like a guy like Conor McGregor, for example. I know it's an extreme example, but this was a guy that was just, fighting just to get a picture with Chuck Liddell in these little crowds. Yeah. And the next thing you know, he's the biggest MMA star in the world. Time will tell how far you go with this, but, it's definitely a realistic chance that, you could be getting harassed by people everywhere you go, the bigger you blow up. It's crazy.
Yeah. I always say like, my goal, I always go back to Jim Miller just because I'm from New Jersey and I always watch the Miller Brothers. Like, I want to be Jim Miller. I come out every 3 months, hopefully, or, he comes out short notice sometimes. He beats up some prospect that had all the hype, or some legend that's like, Clay Guida or someone, and then he disappears back to like anonymity. He goes, he's like hunting, fishing, teaching jiu-jitsu, and then he comes back out, beats somebody up, and he can go to the
working on his house.
He's been around forever, made a good living. But yeah, I hope I can make it to the highest level of sport, but gosh, I'm like a hermit sometimes. So I'd be hiding out, ordering Postmates every night if that was the case.
Yeah. So now you're in North Carolina, right? You said it's Wilmington?
Wilmington. Yep, Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay. And you're over there and you're training with John Salter, right? Ex-UFC fighter. He's over in Bellator now. He's been on a tear too, right? John Salter's been really tearing it up over there. How is it like training with him and just being around a guy like that?
Oh man, it's amazing. It's I truly, sometimes people give credit where credit's due. Sometimes people blow smoke because they feel like they need to. But I can honestly say I wouldn't be in the UFC if it wasn't for John Salter. That's something I don't really get to tell him often, but is the truth is I couldn't wrestle worth a darn when I started coming up here, and I was in a place where I really didn't have anybody. We were kind of all figuring out together, and we had some coaches that had come through that kind of had like careers they attempted to, like maybe they fought in Bellator once or tried out for Ultimate Fighter and didn't make it, but they never got to that next level. So all I ever saw was like kind of like, okay, you fight your fights, maybe on the regional scene, maybe you get a call up, it doesn't work out. And then you teach as many private sessions as you possibly can. And it was like, man, this is kind of depressing. Like, how does this end for me? And then, in the jiu-jitsu realm, since I left New Jersey, I really hadn't had a ton of instruction in jiu-jitsu. So it was kind of like, I had great training partners, but didn't have that figure to look up to. And then John came and taught a seminar at our gym. And I was just blown away. I learned more jiu-jitsu in that day than I had in a long time. And found out he's only 90 minutes down the road. So I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go train with this guy. One thing led to another. And after the first day here, I came back that weekend. Then it was 3 times a week. Then I'm asking to leave work early at the time if we were slow, so I could drive down here and catch class at night, come back. I'm getting home at midnight, splashing water on my face at the gas station to like stay awake. 'Cause I'm up at 6 for work and getting home at 11:30 at night. And it was so worth it. Within 3 months, we were making the plans to move here. And then it really it was unbelievable. As I got here and I was like, I need to know your schedule. What are you doing? And I tried to stick to, what he does and just follow him around. Cause he's had a phenomenal career. His longevity is amazing. I mean, he trains more than any young fighter that I know. Not that he's not in his prime, but he's like 35 years old and he outworks every single guy that comes through. And it's amazing to be around somebody like that. And he's also a smart guy. He's not one of these guys. He's another one, like I was just talking about, he gets recognized around town, but he's done really well for himself in the sport, set up a great life for after fighting, has a good home life, family life, but never got caught up in the hoopla of the fight business as far as like thinking he was bigger than he was or getting caught up in any nonsense. And it's just somebody I can learn from and continue to do every single day and somebody who pushes me. So meeting him was huge. It was just absolutely life-changing for me and my wife because now, I got to make it to the next level with his help. And it's cool to see is like in the fights, you can see like in the Contender Series, especially because there's no crowd and you can hear real clearly is I can hear every single word he's saying. He's just walking me through, and that's the importance of having someone you train with every single day that you trust because I can pull that voice out of a crowd of 20,000 people, no problem.
Wow. Yep. Yeah, and John Salter is a guy that was fighting in the UFC over a decade ago, right? And he's still going in, like I said, dominating fights in one of the biggest promotions in the world. So that's awesome. That's awesome to have a guy like that.
Yeah. So
backing you up.
My first, I've only been until I moved to North Carolina in 2012, or I guess I moved to North Carolina in 2018. But I had only been to one UFC ever, and it was because there was a Grapplers Quest tournament at the Fan Expo that week. And me and a couple guys from my jiu-jitsu gym that I trained at in Jersey went. And it was my 17th birthday. And on that card was John Salter, and he fought Dan Miller. And there was a couple reasons that I was not rooting for John because A, he was like, muscled up wrestler from Alabama. I'm like, first of all, I'm not rooting for anybody from the South. I'm from the North. Second of all, wrestlers always kick my butt in tournaments. I'm not rooting for a wrestler. And number 3 was he was fighting a guy from New Jersey. He was fighting Dan Miller. I was like, dude, I'm not only rooting for Dan Miller, I'm actively rooting against you. And then really hadn't been watching, hadn't been paying attention, hadn't heard much about John. And then he's on a poster at our gym that he's coming to do a seminar. And wait, the same guy that I was cheering against, like, isn't he just a wrestler? I didn't know he had been to Abu Dhabi, like, just great jiu-jitsu. And the funny part is then when I talked to him about it, like, that's one of the first things I told him. I was like, oh, yeah, I wanted you to lose so badly. He didn't even know he was teaching the seminar at our gym. So Derek Brunson also trains out of Wilmington at his gym, Brunson's MMA and Fitness. And, he was friendly with the owner at the gym that I still train at in Myrtle Beach. I left there to move here, that town, but I still go back to spar with everybody and do my boxing. And, he's friends with Mike Kelly, the owner. And Mike had booked Derek and was like, yeah, can you get Salter? And he's like, yeah, never told John. So John came, like, he got like a week's notice, like, yeah, you're coming with me to the seminar next week. And then, linked up with him, and the rest is, been going
awesome. Right. Yeah. Funny, man. Good stuff, man. So I kind of want to go back full circle now because I talked about, the big wins you had in the UFC. I just want to start off with the first one, right? You take out a guy, Matt Wyman. We talked about watching the sport from way back in the day. Matt Wyman was a guy that's been around the block for a long time, right? So you go out there, you dominate him. Was there some bad blood between you guys? I briefly saw like a little something. I saw the way the fight ended. Like, what was that all about? I mean, because you pretty much you dominate the fight, and he's still talking crap after the fight. Was there bad blood or something?
There wasn't. No, not at all. So he just started talking as soon as almost like as soon as the first round started coming to a close. He started talking and then really never stopped the entire fight. But it's hard to see because we were in such close quarters the whole time. Then it didn't bother me, and like I couldn't let it bother me because I already was trying to be on guard from those first big fight jitters. So I know any emotion is going to drain me. So I'm like, I'm not, First thing I couldn't do was get excited about finishing him in that first round because I knew how tough he was. That adrenaline dump will kill you. So I was, I'm not going to finish him. I'm just doing damage. Then he started talking. I'm like, not playing into that. Just got to win. Then I had won. There's like 10 seconds left. He was still talking. And then that's the last I did talk back. He was like, what are you going to do? And I was like, put you out of a job, which joke's on me. He ended up keeping his job till the next fight. So then he started freaking out. And then that's the one that everybody could see. And then John Anik asked me in the post-fight interview, and I told him. So it kind of seemed like that. Then backstage, they were still a little heated. And then the next day I told him at breakfast and everything was good. He was real nice.
Oh,
so,
cool.
I think he was just in a weird spot. Back was against the wall. And then I didn't say anything. And then I said the one thing that probably really struck a nerve. So, but it was all good. We talked at breakfast. Super nice guy. He had his kids with him. Really nice guy. So,
Yeah, you came close to finishing that fight too, right? In the first round, it was you almost got a sub there, if I remember correctly, in the first.
Yeah, well, I had the ref started almost stepping in from strikes. And then I took it back. And then was hunting for the neck, but I knew he was hard to submit. I don't think he'd ever been submitted, but maybe once. So, I knew who was in front of me. He was super tough, and even though he's on the tail end of his career, he's still just as durable as ever. I watched him with Luis Pena, and he ate so many shots in that fight and submission attempts. So we knew who was in front of us, but I got to put out a really high output, which I think was probably the best thing for me was to get 3 rounds in the cage.
Yeah, that's got to be a good feeling, right? Knowing you can go in there and put that pace in there for 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So we talked about the Austin Hubert fight. Finished that fight very quickly. Is there any news, anything going on with an upcoming fight for you?
No, I'm really, really hoping for something soon. So after the last fight, they kind of, Sean Shelby had talked to my manager, Jason House, and he's like, oh, when do you want to come back? And I was like, well, we're having a baby in September, so end of November, December would be perfect. They were like, perfect. And then I really just haven't – I've kept in touch with my manager, obviously, and he's been putting, the word in and the feelers. But I think everything's just so backed up from so many guys being signed, from the pandemic and short notice and all that stuff. And so, yeah, just going to sit back and keep waiting. I'm assuming it's got to be close, And for me and John, we just keep saying the same thing. We're like, are we still signed to the roster of these promotions? Because we're just training every single day, like really hard and not hearing anything, but I think it's going to be probably the best thing for me. Obviously financially, I want to fight a couple times a year, especially being on my first contract. Kind of need to fight a couple times a year. But that being said, is every time I get time off, I feel like I really get to really show what I can do in the next fight because I come back, pretty different. I'm still in the early stages of my career. So I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise. It has been every other single time. So we'll see what happens. But I really think March or April at the latest, I got to be in there. So we're staying ready. I'm ready to take something on, 4 weeks notice would be fine. 3 weeks notice. I'd really rather not just because the more the better, but we're in shape to honestly fight next week. Like I sparred 5-5s last night with my really tough teammates and I feel great. So we're doing our conditioning every week. We're ready to go. My weight's really not, I'm like 20 pounds out all the time at the most. So it really wouldn't be rough to take a fight on 3 weeks notice. And at this point, I pretty much take anything. So we're ready to go whenever. So hopefully we get some news soon.
Awesome, man. Congratulations on having the baby. And what else can we say? We got a couple of questions from some of the fans. Maybe I can run them by you real quick. Let's see what we got here. 1 second. So let's see what we got. All right. Ruben Lee wants to know your opinion on who's the most underrated fighter in the UFC today.
Oh, wow. Gosh, I don't know about most underrated, but I think most underrated as far as accomplishments and overlooked is like Stipe, I feel like, because every time I hear somebody talking about heavyweight greats, I think because Stipe only fights like once a year because these fights are battles. You're getting hit by guys with 4XL gloves. I think guys forget how dominant he's been. He's beaten every single person, and every time they talk about like the best heavyweights, like, oh, well, you got to think about Kane in his prime. It's like, Yeah, but he didn't defend as many times as Stipe, and then they talk about Fedor and everything else. I think it's got to be Stipe Miocic because it seems like every time he goes away for a little while and takes a break, they forget how good he was. I mean, he just put on an absolute clinic against one of the other best heavyweights of all time, and people are like, "Oh, he's got to fight again soon." It's like, man, he just fought in like August. It looked phenomenal. But the one that comes to mind is definitely Stipe.
I think you hit that on the head because I don't know if you've heard this. I don't know if you look into the betting lines or whatnot, but he's like a plus 155 underdog going in against Francis Ngannou after what he already did to him the first time around. I mean, I think Stipe Miocic, in my opinion, is the greatest heavyweight of all time. But I think you hit the nail on the head, man. That was a good answer there. Let's see. We'll give you one more question from the fans. Who was the toughest opponent that you faced?
Well,
toughest opponent you ever faced?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. It's hard to not say the guys that beat you, obviously, but outside of the obvious, the toughest person, probably my last fight before the Contender Series was a guy named Jacob Bone out of we fought in Philadelphia. I think he's out of upstate New York, and he came in. I think he was 7-5 at the time, and that's an okay record, but it's not these blue chip prospects. And man, we went every single area of the fight. I had him rocked twice in the first round. Couldn't get him out of there. I had him on the ground, had his back for most of the second round. Couldn't get the choke, couldn't sub him. And he was getting out of back control, which is one of my best positions, ending up on top. And then the third round, more the same. Like every time I would settle into a position and try and hold him, he'd find a way to shrimp out, get his leg back in. Like super underrated grappling for not really. I mean, I think he had a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, but wasn't like some accomplished competitor. Just really good MMA grappling. And same thing. I landed a lot of punches that fight, did a lot of damage, and he came out for the third round like it was the first round of the fight. He was just nonstop with his pace. So I'd probably say him outside of I lost to Moda, and but even then, I think the 2 rounds I had against him before I got knocked out were way more dominant than against Bones. So outside of the losses, I definitely say him.
All right. And then I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions. You could answer these like one-word answers or just really quick answers, all right?
Yeah.
Best MMA submission artist of all time?
Gosh, I got to say Damian Maia.
Maia. Yeah. The greatest fight you ever saw?
I still think probably Frankie Edgar Gray Maynard 3 or 2. Either or, really. But I'd say 3.
Any of them, right? Yeah. Would you prefer to get a knockout or a submission?
A submission. Yeah, I don't think there's such thing as a lucky submission,
What is your favorite submission?
Rear naked choke.
Rear naked choke. But what is your favorite city to fight in? Any city if you could fight in the world?
Now, I'd say Las Vegas. Before that, Atlantic City, man. When I was fighting on the regional scene, there was nowhere better because it's like a mini Las Vegas. You still look out and see the little strip of all the hotels and casinos and all that. It gives you those dreams of fighting in Vegas one day, but now Vegas for sure.
Vegas. Favorite post-meal fight? Excuse me. Favorite post-fight meal.
I got you. To this day, donuts. I started that my first amateur fight, and I haven't had them every fight because sometimes we're at casinos and we can't get them. But if I can get my hands on a dozen donuts, I'm going to put them away.
Awesome. And then the last one for you. If you could fight any fighter from any era, any weight class, who would it be?
I think BJ Penn. Because, that's who I watched at 155 growing up. And for a long time, he was the 155, best of all time. So I think it'd be cool to see, 'cause obviously styles get outdated and, he had great boxing for the division back then, but would it hold up today? It'd just be cool to see and to grapple with somebody like that. I think BJ Penn. Yeah,
that's a good answer too, man. BJ Penn, I remember watching him in his prime, what he did to Diego Sanchez, right around that. And he looked invincible at that point in time. Yeah, I was a big fan of his as well. Good stuff there, man. Man. Well, what else can we say, man? I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything you want to let the fans know? Any message you want to send out? You want to let everybody know where they can follow you? Anything like that? Any sponsors? Whatever you want. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. It was really, really good to come on and talk about some fights, talk about everything else, and just get to hang out. You can just follow me on Instagram at Joe Solecki. I have a Facebook page, Joe Solecki MMA. Don't really use Twitter too much other than on fight night, or not my fight night, but when there's shows on, talk about the fights. But same thing at Joe Solecki. And just want to thank my sponsors, man. I got Slicers Hoagies down in Florida. That's a good post-fight meal. It's not immediately after the fight, but they always get them up to us in the weeks to follow. I got Sidekick, the recovery tool, sending me some stuff, which is pretty cool and helpful for my training. And just I want to thank my team, man. Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu, Fitness Edge MMA, everybody at Gym O in Charlotte, where we do all our MMA training, our head coach, Jeff Jim O, my boxing coach, Chris Gaub. Already talked about John Salter a bunch. And just my family. It's been really cool this last few months of my life. Is my daughter's 4 months old now. So 4 months of training and preparing to fight as a father is pretty cool. I've always been pretty open about how motivating my wife is and, our relationship and how I'm always fighting for her. And now got this whole other edition, and it's just incredible, man. So, it's pretty cool. I was watching the press conference today, and, at some point they talked about all those guys and their kids, and something I definitely relate to, So I feel like I got to bypass the nonsense of the fight game and attention seeking and all that crap, and just here to be a father and a fighter, man, and really fight so I can be a father, So just really appreciate all the support from everybody that reaches out. It's been great.
That's awesome, man. Nicely said. Congratulations again. Was that your first?
Yeah,
baby?
Oh, man. I had a little girl. It's like the fighter's curse. We all get these little girls.
Yeah.
Wrap us around their finger, man. It's amazing. It's been fantastic, man. Best thing I've ever done.
I just had my first as well, and he's creeping up on 4 months. So wow. He's 3.5 months. So yeah, man. Good stuff, man. Good luck with everything, and I really look forward to seeing you in there soon, man. I'm gonna be watching your next fight. Anytime you ever want to come on, man, you always have an open invitation, and we're all going to be rooting you on over here, man.
Thanks so much, man. Really appreciate you having me on. Talk soon.
Thank you. All right, Joe. Good stuff, man. Joe Solecki. That guy is a stud. I'm telling you guys right now. I've been rewatching his fights. This guy is very, very dangerous on the mat, and his striking too, man. Underrated striking. This guy is legit. I cannot wait to see who they match him up with in his next fight. And he says that hopefully he'll be in there in the next couple months. Hopefully by April. I think he said March, April. So hopefully soon. And he's willing to take a fight, 4 weeks notice or whatnot. So he's a real fighter's fighter. And that was cool, man. I enjoyed talking with him there. Yeah, man. Running through some of your guys' comments. If you guys get any questions about UFC 257, man, go ahead and ask away. I definitely want to take a look into this card. I kind of want to peek into each of these fights once again. I know we have the prediction video out there, but I do want to take a further look into this card, man, and see what you guys are thinking about this card as well. We already talked about the main event and the co-main event. Those fights are excellent. Some sleeper fights on this card. I think the Arman Sarukian versus Nasrat Haqparast fight is a true sleeper fight. We know that Nasrat got knocked out by Dober recently, but he did bounce back with a nice victory. And let's not forget, Nasrat is a very, very talented fighter coming off that win against Alex Munoz. Here's the thing, though, Arman Sarukian, in my opinion, has the potential to be a champion in the division. I truly believe that. This guy is so well-rounded. His grappling is amazing, and his striking is amazing. So when you put those two things together, I mean, we saw what he just did to Davi Ramos. Put on an absolute clinic against Davi Ramos. You look at the age; he's only 24 years old. So I always like to say that, man. Right around that age, you start to see major strides from these guys, and he's already looking amazing. So I expect something big from him. And like I said, I think this guy is a potential champion. I truly believe that. So that is a sleeper fight, in my opinion. Let's see what we got going on over here. Oh, shout out to my boy over here, man. Mike Peterson, man. That is much appreciated. What's good, Teller? What underdogs do you like the best or do you think are worth the chance to bet on? Thanks. All right, Mike, let me tell you who the best underdogs in this card are, in my opinion. We'll look at some plays that there's some potential value there. We just talked about the Nasrat fight, but I'll be honest with you. As much as I do respect Nasrat's skills, I respect Arman's skills so much more that, I don't even really think there's any value there, in my opinion. Right around plus 245, I would stay away from that fight. As far as some of the good value that's out there, we got guys like Nick Lentz with a nice big tag on the side of him, plus 425. I would stay away from that as well. I think that Movsar is too much. We talk about top guys in the game right now. I think Movsar is another guy that's a potential champion. So that's as far as a value play. Maybe you want to stay away from that, in my opinion, as well. Let's see, man. I'm gonna give you a good value play here. It may not be a fight that's at the best line, but if you want to actually go for a dog on this card that may come through for you, I think you're going to want to take a look at the Andrew Sanchez price tag. If you get him right around plus 120, I think Andrew Sanchez is a guy that can definitely go out there. He can knock anybody out. He has great wrestling. So as far as the grappling goes, he's going to be in that fight. Makhmud Muradov is very talented as well, and I do slightly edge him to win the fight, but I think that Andrew Sanchez is a guy that can, without a doubt, show up and pull the victory off this Saturday. And out of all the dogs here, I think that he's one of the best value. I also do believe Michael Chandler has some great value, especially if you were able to grab Michael Chandler early. His tag, let's not forget, man, Michael Chandler, you could have grabbed him as high as plus 145, plus 140. I think that was great value. So you had to be on that a little bit earlier. Now he's right around plus 110, which I still think is great value because I think that Chandler should be the slight favorite here. I think that Chandler should be right around minus 130. So we talk about value. There's some value. You got dogs like Marina Rodriguez right around plus 255, but I think that Amanda Ribas is too much for her. So, that's a fight that doesn't really stand out to me too much. Marcin Prachnio right around plus 270. That's a fight. Khalil Roundtree is a guy that is very talented, but we've seen him drop the ball and he has some holes in his game. But Prachnio is a guy that lost 3 fights in a row, and you kind of wonder if he's even worthy of fighting in the UFC. So I don't really know if I want to have any money connected to a guy like that, to be quite honest with you. So I think when we're talking about value plays on this card, you got to take a peek at Andrew Sanchez and even more so Michael Chandler. I think Michael Chandler, and then you know what? I'm going to say this. Some of you might not like it, but I think DP, man, Dustin Poirier, getting Dustin Poirier at plus 260, there's some potential value there as well. But again, in that fight, I think that McGregor comes out and I think he gets the job done. But maybe the best bang for your buck, if you could handle betting against Conor, would be to take Dustin Poirier. So Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, and more so probably Michael Chandler, because I do think that Conor is just – he's looking like he's in phenomenal shape, and I don't know. It'd be hard for me to see him not getting it done one way or another. He seems like he's very confident in his cardio. And, that's what I would say as far as the best value. And thanks a lot, Mike. I highly appreciate that, man. Who wins, Whitaker or Costa? I'm going to take Whitaker there. Whitaker, I was on Whitaker in his last fight. A lot of people were sleeping on him. People forget the skills that he brings to the table. Costa looked horrible in that last fight, man. He looked like he completely mentally dropped the ball, and he needs to bounce back and prove something to me before I'd back him against an ex-champion in Robert Whitaker. Costa is a guy that's gone in there and he's delivered, but look at some of the guys that he did beat. Uriah Hall, Hendricks. Hendricks is a guy that was way past his prime and had a lot of issues going on with all types of stuff. So Whitaker is a guy that is the real deal, and I would take Whitaker there when I got to make a decision on that. What else are you guys talking about over here? Hyena. I'm leaning fairly heavily on Sarukian winning this one. Same here, brother. Same here. He's going to do what he did against Ramos. Keep it at range. Hit Hapras on mid-step. Everything looks great. This is a great fight, one that cannot be missed. I agree. We could talk about Arman Sarukian all day because I've been very high on him. I've had a major play on him. I had a major play on him against OAM, Olivier Aubin Mercier. And to be honest, he didn't look amazing in that fight. If you guys remember that fight, it was a little bit of a lackluster match. It was kind of they were hanging on each other. It was more of a grappling-based match. But once again, he just showed that he can show up and deliver a victory when you need him. The Islam Makhachev fight, I believe he took that fight on short notice, I believe. And I forget if he did or not, but it doesn't even matter. Islam Makhachev is one of the most talented guys in the division, especially when it comes to the grappling. And Arman was hanging with him in those grappling exchanges. If you guys remember, that the grappling is very, very tight. And I definitely edge him with the grappling against Nasrat. Nasrat's very talented as well, but Arman is more tight, and he's more talented there, in my opinion. So, yeah, Sarukian is a machine. Here we go. Islam Makhachev had a hard time controlling Sarukian on the ground. Sarukian got some nice butterflies. Yeah, man. Yeah, he had a good get-up game. Yeah, Islam tried to take him down, tried to do what he does, in all his matches, and that was not really working, on Arman. But even though he did edge out the victory. Ooh, good question. Here we go. Who should Chiesa fight next? I know Chiesa's calling out Colby Covington. By the way, shout out to Chiesa. Looked absolutely amazing in that fight against Neil Magny. Let's not underestimate what Neil Magny brings to the table. Neil Magny's a very, very skilled fighter. And he basically Neil Magny'd Neil Magny. So that was really cool to see. We knew that they had similar styles and that's probably how it would play out one way or another, in my opinion, whether who was going to do it. I thought Neil Magny would have done a little bit better in those grappling and wrestling exchanges. Chiesa has filled in very well to that weight class. And I'm going to pull up real quick. I'm going to pull up the rankings. And I want to go over some potential matchups for Michael Chiesa. You guys don't mind. Because I know Michael Chiesa saying he only wants a top 5 fighter in the division right now. So 1 second. I'm going to pull it up on the screen for you guys too, so you guys can take a look with me. All right, so we'll take a look at the welterweight division. And I do believe that these are updated, right? So you got Chiesa at number 8 right now. Actually, I'm not exactly positive if they were updated. Do you guys know? Were they updated? I believe they were. All right, so we got Usman as the champion. You got Colby Covington as the number 1 contender. I think, rightfully so, him and Gilbert Burns. Chiesa, in my opinion, is not ready for a matchup with those guys, or not necessarily deserving, in my opinion. We got guys like Jorge Masvidal. We got to see what's going on with him. Stephen Thompson. Who I would love to see him fight? I would love to see him fight Tyron Woodley. I really would. I would say T Wood, but I don't know what's going on with T Wood right now. I would edge Chiesa to win that fight. I think that Chiesa would maul him. I think T Wood's a little bit on the downhill. That's for sure. But T Wood against Chiesa, I think that would also give T Wood an opportunity to show that he's still somewhat in the game. He should be able to go out there and take out a guy like Chiesa, at least in his mind. So I think I would like to see that fight. Damian Maia, that would be an interesting matchup as well, because Maia, how he is with the grappling, and that would be a very interesting matchup stylistically. You got guys like, he doesn't want to really drop back, but, Vincent Luque is a savage, an absolute beast. Jeff Neal's coming off that loss, so I don't think he wants something to do with that. Yeah, I think we're looking at like a T Wood. I don't think he's really going to have an opportunity to fight a lot of these guys right now, because we got Gilbert Burns fighting Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, and we don't really know exactly what's going on with Colby. We got Leon Edwards, who has a big fight coming up, obviously, with the guy who's ranked, number 15. But that's going to get sorted out. Stephen Thompson, an interesting matchup. By the way, did you guys hear what's his name? Chase Hooper's getting his training done now with Stephen Thompson and the boys over there. So that's a good sign for him. And yeah, man. I think we'll go with T Wood. Who do you think wins in a rematch with Michael Chandler versus all of his losses? Who do you think wins in a rematch? So, obviously he had the loss against Will Brooks, which, I think that if he ever had a rematch against Will Brooks, I think that he would prevail in that fight. Will Brooks, his career completely fell apart. For those of you guys that don't know the story, I bumped into Will Brooks at a bar back in the day, and he was one of the most unfriendly guys that I've ever met in my life. So really not a fan of Will Brooks at all. And actually, me and him hit the punching machine. True story, man. I kid you not. That's kind of how the whole beef started. I saw him, introduced myself, said I'm a fan of the game. I admire what he brings to the table. I watch all his fights. there was one of those punching machines where you go up, you could hit it, tells you the number on it. I'm good at that machine because I know the little technique to it. I got the video, I'll post it on my Instagram, but I hit 999s and those things. There's a technique you kind of want to hit, like a hybrid hook uppercut. But whatever, I was all in good fun, man. I was being completely nice about it. I tried to say, hey, man, I'll pay for it, man. Can I hit, let's see who hits harder, joking around. And he wasn't having it. He was extremely rude. But then he goes, oh, let's go do it. And I ended up hitting higher than him. Not that means anything anyway, obviously, guys. I understand that. But it was for fun. You're at the bar, you're trying to have a good time. But a very unfriendly guy. I think that Chandler would win that rematch. And I don't even understand how he lost that fight the first time around. It really blows my mind. Other than that, as far as a rematch, let's see. As far as a rematch with Patricio, Patricio's been looking amazing, but that's a fight that I would have loved to see play out longer. Obviously, Patricio got that knockout very quickly. I think that Chandler can definitely win that fight. I had him to win that fight going into it. Patricio's a beast, though, but I think he has the potential to win that fight. The Brent Primus fight, obviously he won that rematch, right? He hurt his ankle. He was injured, so that's why he lost that fight. The Eddie Alvarez fight, he lost one by split decision, but, let's not forget that he took the belt from Eddie Alvarez and he finished him in that fight. So, that's, again, he's beaten two of the guys that he's lost to. He's already, rematched them and won those fights. But the Will Brooks one was the weird one. And remember the first fight, I think he should have won that first fight too. He lost that by split decision. But yeah, I am a fan of Michael Chandler. And, he's got to show up this weekend. He's got to show up. He's on the big stage. He's getting his opportunity. For real MMA fans like me and you guys, I'm sure you've been watching his career for a long time. Let's see if he's really up to the level, man, of the UFC. We know that he brushes shoulders with the top guys in the game, Burns, Usman, Henry Hooft, all those guys. They were at Hard Knocks 365. Now they're at Sanford MMA. I mean, he's training with these UFC guys all the time, so. Yeah, Wonder Boy would be a fun one in regards to Chiesa. Stylistically, that would be a really good matchup, and I would favor Wonder Boy. I think Wonder Boy would be able to keep that fight standing. Who do you think is going to win, Colby versus? I think that Colby takes out Jorge Masvidal. I think it's more likely. I think Masvidal has an opportunity to possibly get a knockout. I mean, we know what he could do. He's a very well-rounded fighter. But if you go on YouTube, you could pull up a lot of training footage of these two guys. These guys, they used to, I guess they shared an apartment. I'm familiar with the neighborhood that they're in. I recognize the inside of it. I told you guys I bumped into Colby Covington at an apartment pool. I grew up right by American Top Team right there. So these guys were very good friends. These guys were basically living together. Like Masvidal says, he was living on his couch. You could see they had these, this YouTube channel, whatever it was. They had these videos that came out. They were hanging out with girls and whatnot. I mean, they were really boys. They were good friends. And they would wrestle, man. They would wrestle in the apartment. You could see what they would do on the mat. And Colby Covington would absolutely ragdoll him. And I think that's how that fight would most likely go. I think that Colby would get the better of him with the grappling. Again, now, those things that I'm talking about, how they played out in the sparring and whatnot, obviously it's not the same as a real fight. In a real fight, Masvidal can throw his knee through your temple. It's a little bit of a different fight. But that being said, I mean, you got to favor Colby to win that fight. Just, when you have a fighter that's so superior with the grappling and the cardio, it would be hard not to back Colby to say that that's the most likely scenario. And I'm trying to pull up let's see if I can pull up a line on that. Here we go. Yeah, we got a line right here. Colby Covington is a minus 185 against Masvidal right now. And Masvidal's a plus 150. I think, when that fight, if we make it to that fight, I think that Colby would be more like a minus 250, 270 by the time that fight actually was going down. Mark my words on that. So if you can get him at a line like that early, I would like that line. Yeah. What Bellator fighter would you love to see in the UFC? I think we're going to have to go Patricio Pitbull, man. We just talked about how he has a knockout over Michael Chandler. I mean, if you haven't been paying attention to what he's been doing, he's the double champ over in Bellator. He's been going out there. He's been whooping up everybody. We saw him in his last fight Took out Pedro Carvalho, knocked him out in the first round. Took out Juan Archuleta before that. Juan Archuleta is a very, very underrated fighter. I'm very high on Juan Archuleta. He went out there and he took him out in a decision. He's a guy that really needs to come over, man. He needs to come over to the UFC. That would be the guy that I would want to see finally. And of course, Michael Chandler. But Michael Chandler, my wish is being granted this Saturday. So Masvidal, Duck, and Colby for sure. Possibly, man. Possibly. I don't know. I heard there's some rumors that they might be hosting the Ultimate Fighter show. There's a possibility. I think that would be awesome if that was the case. I would love to see both those guys as coaches on that show. And Wonder Boy would most likely school him today too. Edward too. There is a reason he is never talking about the dude. Yeah, man. Stephen Thompson, man, absolutely amazing on the feet. I think George St. Pierre said it best. Stephen Thompson is the best striker that he's ever trained with and he's ever seen. Dude is phenomenal on the feet. He's constantly underrated. I've made a lot of money on Stephen Thompson over the years. I continuously have betted on him, and I've made wagers on him because I'm a big fan of what he brings to the table. Who would win, Yoel Romero or Rumble Johnson? I'm taking Anthony Johnson. I just bumped into him at a Bare Knuckle FC right before everything fell apart when things were still normal. Had a great time, man. I saw him over there. He was in phenomenal shape, really, really phenomenal shape. Obviously, he's looking to make his what is he? He's making a. What's he? I'm trying to remember now. Slipping my mind. Is he's fighting over in Bellator? Yeah, Bellator, right? Is it Bellator or BKFC? Slipping my mind right now. I think he's fighting over in Bellator, right? Hold on. I gotta remember that now. Yeah, he's in Bellator, right? I don't know. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but last I remembered, he's going to be making his Bellator debut. I would definitely take him to win that fight. Yoel, he's getting up there in age. Yeah, he's in phenomenal shape, but I mean, we've seen him as of recently. Not a lot of activity in some of those fights. I think the age is catching up to him. Doesn't know how to use his wrestling the right way for the skills that he does have. Doesn't have the best fighter IQ. Doesn't know how to stick to a game plan. And I think Anthony Johnson's gonna come back, and I think he's gonna be sleeping dudes left and right. I think the time off won't really have a negative effect on him. And I think that he's going to go in there and knock out a lot of guys. Oh, Vadim Nemkov, I think he would do great in the UFC. I think that guy is an amazing fighter. Been watching him for a long time. Believe he is a disciple from the Fedor team, right? Fedor Emelianenko and those boys, I believe. Great striking. We saw him just whoop up Ryan Bader, right? Completely outclassed Ryan Bader, knocked him out. And good grappling, an absolute specimen. I mean, what a frame for the division. I think that he would fare very well in the UFC. I think he would be giving a lot of guys. I think he would be whooping up a lot of guys in the UFC. So, yeah, I think he would do great. And I would love to see him come over to the UFC. He reminds me of a lot of fighters that were over in Bellator that I wish I could have saw in the UFC that never really made it. If you guys remember what I'm talking about, like Alexander Storm Shlemenko and all his boys, those Russian guys. We had, what's his name? The two guys that trained under him, man, they were two savages. Names are slipping my mind right now, man. I'm going to give you one right now. I don't know why it's slipping my mind. He's one of my favorite fighters in the game. But 1 second. What the hell am I thinking of right now? Andrei Koreshkov. I don't know why his name slipped my mind, but Andrei Koreshkov is a guy that's one of the most entertaining fighters in the game. Just a nasty, nasty fighter on the feet. Koreshkov, and there was another guy too. His last name ended with a ski, something ski, but he was a guy that was another guy he trained with them. And I always wanted to see both those guys over in the UFC. We never got to see them come over. And I don't really think that we ever will. And I have a gut feeling that it might be a similar situation with Nemkov. I don't know if it's the management or whatnot, but some of those guys, they stay over there. So Roundtree and Muradov is my parlay. Is bad, but so is Joanne, and Praknio trash too, and Muradov should hopefully win. Well, I'm sure that parlay pays pretty well as far as the line you're going to get on that parlay together. The only thing is for me is, there's some question marks there on a parlay like that. Meredov, I'm a big fan of him and I'm edging him to win the fight. But Andrew Sanchez can easily show up and spoil your party, in my opinion. But again, I do edge Meredov to win the fight. Roundtree has some holes in his game, but again, he should go out there. And yes, Prachnio, I agree with that as far as the trash goes. I think he should go out there and knock him out. But if he doesn't, fight game is crazy. Jessica I, that's a fight. I mean, I slightly edged Calderwood to win that fight, but I mean, I can easily show up and win it. But if one of those 3 legs is off, you lose your play. But I'm sure the pay is decent on that, so I hope you do hit that play, man. Unless I'm betting against some of those plays, I won't be rooting for that. Prime Jones versus Prime Verdum. Ooh, that's an interesting matchup. I mean, there's a size difference there. Got to edge Jones, though, man. Got to take Jones. But Verdum could have easily went out there and got a sub. I mean, when he's in his prime, he was nasty. The striking was nasty. She's always dating her coaches. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really know about that. But Calderwood's getting up there in age. She's 35 years old. She has that funny voice. She talks like a little innocent girl, but she's a beast. Oh, yeah, man. So good question, Marcel. You know what? I've been telling you guys, I've been so back and forth with this pick. I think I'm going to take Sarah McMahon to win the fight. The more I've been looking into this, like I said, Sarah McMahon is looking to be in phenomenal shape. She's coming off a big victory. I think that her wrestling will come into play. I think that Pena is a very good wrestler herself, but McMahon is Olympic caliber, and I think that she's extremely dedicated. If you guys are watching the embeddeds, she's on the airplane shadow boxing. I mean, she's really ready to go. And as determined as she is, that's why I've leaned towards Sarah McMahon. And I'm taking her to win that fight. I'm edging Sarah McMahon. Her hands have been coming around a little bit too, so over the years. But she's up there in age, but she takes care of herself, and she's a true professional. So, yeah, pick is going to be Sarah McMahon there. All right, guys. Whew. Been running for over an hour. I might do, after the weigh-ins, I might do tomorrow maybe a little live video. If you guys want, I'll do that. Maybe we'll hop on here. We'll talk a little bit more about UFC 257. But I do hope that you guys enjoyed the interview with Joe Solecki. I sure did. And, again, that's another fighter that I can't wait. I get to look forward to seeing him step inside the octagon soon, getting to know and getting to talk to these guys. Another guy that's awesome. For some reason, it seems like all the guys that I get on my show, man, are really awesome dudes with great personalities that you could really get behind and root for. So, yeah, man, thank you, Cayman, man, for tuning in. Thank you guys, all you guys that tuned into the show. I'm really going to start trying to push the show out again, man. You know how we just picked up the second season? I'm really going to try to start branding the show and try to get the viewership up, working on a couple things in regards to that. You guys know I always say it. Once I'm able to really go to these UFC events and things get back to normal, I promise you guys some of the best MMA footage that you guys are going to see in the game. It's going to be hands down. Just forget it. I'm going to have, just to give you a little bit of an idea, man, I want to get a camera inside the arena and just, obviously I'll snip it up some of the best clips and just post a video out for these events that I'm able to go out to. And because every time I go to these events, I'm after I come back, after the weekend or wherever, if it's on a trip or even if it's a local show or a local UFC event, I'm back at my house and I'm like, damn, if I only had a video camera and, I'm sitting back and I'm laughing about this situation or that situation. So maybe we get a GoPro on and you guys will see some wild stuff. I'm bumping into UFC fighters, everywhere you go, you're bumping into fighters, man. We're cracking jokes. Yeah, look forward to that. And I'm going to get to this last question here before I tune out. Are you high on Asimov, guy from Bellator? Yeah, Asimov. That's the guy that he just took out. What was that? The fresh my memory real quick. He just took out the other undefeated Logan Storley, right? And that was that is who you're talking about. What's the hell's his full name real quick? Let me pull it up. But yes, I am very high in that guy. Very good grappling. I want to talk about him real quick before I close the show down. I'm very high on Logan Storley as well. Dude is a beast. But yeah, Yaroslav Amosov, the Ukrainian fighter. Yeah, I'm very high on him. I think that he's very unique. You see him going in there and he's out wrestling guys like Storley. We saw him. What was the other fighter that he took out as well? I mean, it's very impressive the wrestling that he brings in to the octagon against Ed Ruth. Ed Ruth, a Penn State Division I wrestler, he was getting takedowns on Ed Ruth. I mean, and to my knowledge, he doesn't have, a substantial wrestling background. He's just an overall MMA fighter, and I like his striking. I want to see him touch up on his cardio a little bit. Not to say it's bad, but we saw him getting a little tired in that Storley fight. But who wouldn't? I mean, the pace that those guys put, and like I said, Logan Storley is a beast, and they were really hanging on each other. But yeah, I'm very, very high on him. And that's another guy, 25-0. I would love to see him inside the UFC. I don't know if we're going to see it. I don't know if Bellator is going to try to lock him up. Time will tell. And yeah, man. Great show, man. MMA Live Discussion, episode 25. I think I'm gonna sign out, man. Signing out.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.